Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the main card fights for UFC Fight Night, Thompson versus Neal. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the main card. So in our first fight, we have in the heavyweight division, Tybura versus Greg Hardy. So it's an interesting matchup right here. You got Greg Hardy, who's been on a little bit of a tear in the UFC's heavyweight division. Hasn't really suffered a true loss. Well, he has lost to Volkov clearly, but hasn't really suffered a bad loss. And I think he got 3 or 4 wins in the UFC, riding like 2 or 3 fight winning streak. So he's on a good little bit of streak, good little stint right now. And he hasn't lost anybody he shouldn't lose to. He got what's it called, against that one bum. Well, let me not call him a bum, but that one fighter. He lost via like a DQ. But nobody sees that a real loss. Then Volkov, a fighter he fought on short notice, who is a higher caliber top 5 fighter. So he hasn't really suffered a true loss in my opinion. Like I said, he has that one loss that was like a no contest that he should have been a victory. I mean a DQ. And he has the loss to Volkov, which he should have lost and probably should have got knocked out really. But going against that big of a jump in the competition only to lose the decision doesn't really say a whole lot against him. So he's been winning and been looking good. He's been a winner. So going against Tybura, I think Tybura is probably one of the most experienced fighters out there he has fought outside of Volkov. Matter of fact, is the most experienced fighter he's fought outside of Volkov. And it presents an interesting skill set. And also, I think Tybura, he regains some steam. I think he was like on a 2 or 3 fight losing streak via knockout. And he turned it around, started using his wrestling more, and get his head on straight and find ways to win and win it cleanly. He hasn't been looking like getting edging by on like little sloppy decisions. He's been fighting some real clean technical fighting and showing good fight IQ and just showing like he's here to stay, or he's here and he's not playing around. He's not about to be cut. He's like turning around from a losing streak to being on like a 3 fight winning streak. And all fights showcase his grappling. Now against Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy he's not going out there just running through people like he was when he was coming up on the Contender Series and his couple first fights. Because now he's fighting better fighters. He started to use his distance more, trying to use his technique more. And he's not a non-technical fighter. He has some good technique. But what I see in this fight is one. I'm not going to really go too much further and just drag this one on. I see Greg Hardy, he has asthma and his cardio wanes after maybe like that, really into that second round. And he's not really going to knock nobody out in that second or third round. Well, typically. Well, he did knock somebody in that second round in the last fight. Well, he's typically not going to knock them out in later rounds unless they kind of fade in themselves or they start to wear down. And Tybura has some solid cardio, solid conditioning, and like I said, higher caliber fighter with a good fight IQ and a good well-rounded skill set, good grappling, good striking, like I said, and a good head on his shoulders. So I see Tybura keeping this one at distance and, controlling the range earlier on to drag Hardy into the later rounds, then using his wrestling and grappling. I'm not saying he'll have great success with his wrestling, as Hardy has those great hips from football, not wrestling, and that great strength from being a top tier D1 athlete, professional football player for many years. So I don't see Tybura really having the best success getting him down, but I do see him drag him to the later rounds. And then clinching up with him, making him spend spend energy and gas him out, take the energy out and the stamina and the air and the wind out of his cells and drag him into the decision. So keep the striking total low early on, keep it technical, keep it at distance, then drag him to later rounds and mix in the wrestling, mix in the grappling, wear on Greg Hardy, take advantage of his asthma, take advantage of him slowing down his pattern of that, slowing down in later rounds. And then, like I said, drag him to the decision, grind him out, wear him out, outpoint him, fight a smart fight, and beat him to a decision. So, in this one, I have Tybura via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the women's flyweight division, actually, Jillian Robertson versus Talia Santos. So looking at this one right here, Jillian Robertson, I would say, is the better grappler, wrestler for sure in this one, and she's on a good tier. And they both have some of similar fights. In those similar fights, Robertson has looked better against the same competition. She beat Barella, dominated Barella, I believe. And let me see, matter of fact, I'm not even mentioning that because I didn't even look that up too much. But I believe she beat Barella, but she definitely beat Molly McCann better than Talia Santos did, at least as far as just going to just straight dominate her in the grappling, whereas Talia Santos mixing grappling, pieced her up on the feet, and did whatever she wanted to. But Robertson went out there, took her down, and got her out there in the first round via submission like this. Outclassed her in that fight, but how I see this fighting is a style. It's not about who you beat and how you beat. It's how do you match up against the opponent you're fighting. Because you could beat everybody that beat that person, but if you don't match up the best stylistically with that person, it means nothing. And every person is a different person. So just by beating who beat that person, it always is not going to favor you. You might, on the odds, or might lead to, well, typically if you beat everybody that beat that person, you'll typically beat that person. But it's not an exact science that just because you beat every person that beat that person, or every person that they had a hard time with, you had an easier time. it's not MMA math. It's not a exact science. And I think it was more exact sciences. Well, no exact science in this fighting game. But one thing we do know for sure is that styles make fights. And I think stylistically, Santos is a stronger fighter in this one. It's a stronger fighter. And the more powerful fighter. And I think the more well-rounded fighting, Robertson more so is a one-dimensional grappler. She does have some decent striking, but she hasn't really shown to be that effective on the feet, where she has been truly her bread and butter is her grappling and wrestling and submission game. And I think Santos has underrated grappling. And we saw her in her fight with Molly McCann. She's fully confident. In her first fight, she kind of had like a, she got caught under the lights. And then that Molly McCann fight and some other fights, she showed like this is who she can be when she's not, under the lights and overwhelmed by the bright lights. And when she's not like overwhelmed, she's truly a threat in this division. I think that's what's going to show in this fight, that she's a big threat in this fight. She's going to be the stuff Robertson takedowns a lot in this fight, be able to keep this fight on the feet. And I think she'll be able to strike, keep this fight where she's stronger at and keep it on the feet for most of the fight. And if she does get taken down, I think she'll be able to not match Robertson, but to address her grappling to Robertson and get back to her feet. And outstrike Robertson, land the heavier strike, land more strike, and dictate the pace of the feet. Dictate the pace of the striking, the distance, the control, and like I said, outland her and land the heavier shots. So I don't think she puts away Robertson, but I do think she beats her to a clear-cut decision. I don't think it's like a complete shutout, but I do think it's like a 29-28 decision. So in this fight, I have Talia Santos via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font. So this is a real good matchup right here. You got two solid fighters right here. Moraes, they're kind of in different paths right now, but they're both very solid, still very dangerous guys in this division. And I'm saying that because Moraes, like, he's on the downtrend, Rob Font's on the uptrend, but Rob Font has not really fought the competition that Moraes has fought. Well, he's fought the same competition, but at that level of competition, he hasn't really beat a guy at the level that Moraes has been at and is at, or was at if he's really declining. Because he's for the Sunsal, got dominated by Sunsal. Rob Font did. They both lost to Sunsal, but Moraes went back and fought him again and just destroyed him. Rob Font never got to avenge that loss. And just got, outpointed, controlled, dropped a couple times against a Sunsal. Never got a rematch, but was outclassed for the most part in that matchup. He fought John Lineker, was just picked apart and beat around the ring in that one. I don't think he was stopped, but he got dropped, I think, a couple times against. But yeah, similar story, but went up to the higher level competition or the upper level competition at bantamweight and just wasn't there. And that was a couple years back, but as we've seen now, he's getting better, but he still has not, shown how he looked against that competition again. And now he's going against Moraes. And you would hope, like I say, that all props and best of luck to him to, beat Moraes and, show that he's really at this level and really ready to make a statement and go for the title. But in this fight, where I'm going with this is I'm leaning to Moraes. I think Rob Font boxing could be an issue for Moraes. There's fighters like Moraes who like to be in that kind of, a little bit square in a way. So, but they be very good as far as kickboxing and sliding their legs out of the way of kicks, avoiding kicks, and still being in range to land big body kicks and big leg kicks and big head kicks. Like, that style is good for, like say, kickboxing, but we going against a boxer or a person with a good slick hand, especially like a good straight shots, like especially a right hand, left straight, anything like that, or cross. The style doesn't really work the best against that style because they'll be square, and when you're square like that, it's really you can't move your head the best, and somebody can just set you up and fire straight down the center, and you can't really move your head in response, especially if they set it up real well, hide it real well. You get tagged about every time. So, as you saw against Cejudo, you saw against Aldo in like the first and second round. They can't move their head the best when, like I said, somebody really got a good right hand or left hand or straight, a good cross, and they can slip that in on them because, like I said, they'll be square. They're good at defending kicks, avoiding head kicks, avoiding body kicks, avoiding leg kicks, avoiding hooks, sometimes avoiding jabs, but that straight cross could sneak in very well and sneak in often. And I think Rob Font has that tool, but I think Moraes is going to counter that tool. And we saw against Aldo, a lot of people say he lost to Aldo. Moraes did. I saw him beating Aldo. I picked Aldo to win. I was hoping he won, but when I really got to fight out, Aldo let off the gas in that third round, or just gassed out in the third round, and Moraes did just enough to edge the fight. And I thought in the second round, actually the first round was his round. Then Aldo had the second round. Then Aldo kind of let off the gas in the third round, so that allowed Moraes to win the first and the third round. But either way, I feel like in that third round, Moraes started to, see the straight and started to be able to avoid it. And in other fights, we started seeing him be able to address that. I think he'll be able to address the boxing better. He already had at least two fights where he had issues with that and had to address it. He didn't address it in the Cejudo fight, but he did address it better in the Aldo fight. And I feel like with a boxer, a lot of times their issue is fighters that will chew up their leg and, take them out of their boxing stance and not allow them to be comfortable in that boxing stance. And we know Moraes is one of the quicker twitch fighters in all of MMA and all of MMA history, and he definitely has some heavy leg kicks. And I feel like he's going to be the chew up the lead leg of Robertson, taking away his jab and taking away a lot of his boxing focus. And then rip that to the body, rip that up top. I think it's a competitive fight, a competitive war. But I think Moraes' dividends, like paying dividends to the leg and the body, are going to take away a lot of Robertson's boxing game and allow Moraes to dictate the pace of the striking and beat him in a highly competitive, fun striking matchup. Well, overall, they both full mixed martial artists, so I expect to see the full game. But I think where it's mostly going to play out is on the feet. And in that section of the game, Moraes' leg kicks are going to be which really dictate who's winning this fight or tell the tale of this fight. So in this fight, I have Marlon Moraes via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the welterweight division, Michelle Pereira versus Chaos Williams. So, this fight has fireworks written all over it. Even the guy's name in this fight is Chaos. So, expect chaos. I think Michelle Pereira showed a much more, mature, he's showing much more maturity in his recent fights. He's not going out there he's still being wild, but he's not going out there this straight up being wild. He's going out there, he's being wild at times, but then he's going back to his technique. Matter of fact, he's sticking to his technique. Then at times he's choosing to be wild. Instead of just going out there doing front flips and back flips and cartwheels and triple back flips and sticking landing and he's doing gymnastics. He might do that at times, but he's not doing it the whole fight like he was doing outside of the UFC in his debut and in his other two fights. But in these last, 2 fights, he's been shown being much more clean and much more composed. Especially his last fight was a clean performance throughout. Did a jumping Superman punch and flying knees and stuff. I think some cartwheels at times, but it was very limited. That's all I'm saying. But going against Chaos Williams, I think Pereira in the past has shown not to do the best with, pressure and aggressive strikers, especially a technical striker like Chaos Williams with the height and the reach and the length he has and the power, especially of Chaos Williams. And Pereira relies a lot on kicks. And with a fighter like Williams who has that length and knows how to use it and fire straight down the pipe and time it, has that timing, I think that's not going to pay the best for Pereira. I think Pereira's going to be able to land some good kicks. But I feel like Williams will be the time those kicks and start landing power on Pereira. And like I said, Pereira has been stopped several times in his career outside of the UFC when he's stepped up in competition for higher level strikers. And I'm not saying Williams is the most technical striker, but he does got good timing. And he does got good power, and he is an underrated striker. You might look at him and say, "Oh, this guy." Well, let me slow down a little bit. You might not look at him and say, "Oh, this guy's this and that," or "This guy's so technical," but you got to respect what Chaos Williams is bringing. I think that's what going to come down to. I think Pereira overall is the more technical striker. But I think Williams' timing, his length, and finding that power and being able to connect and time Pereira's kicks is what's going to end this fight in an explosive fashion in the first round. And I think I think he finds that straight right down the pipe as Pereira's loading up on a kick or trying to set up a kick. Times it cracks him and puts him out in that first round. But exciting fight. Short, but exciting fight. But Chaos Williams getting his hand raised. So in this fight, I have Chaos Williams via first round TKO. Now to our co-main event. We have in the bantamweight division, Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera. So I talked all fast this whole video, and now I'm slowing down at the later half, but at this point, it doesn't even matter, but I'm trying. So Aldo versus Vera, not Vieira. So Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera. How I see this one right here is that I would really just get to the point with this one. I feel like Vieira is he's improving, he's budding, he's become a much better fighter. We've seen the lows with Vieira, we've seen his development. And first he was kind of this young kid, a lot of talent, a lot of prospect to him, but clearly wasn't at the level. Then he worked up and he's this guy's getting better, but still just kind of middle of the pack. And then almost this guy really started to break from the pack. And now he's at that point where maybe this guy can do something in the division. And this is a fight that can really be it for him. Well, he did beat Sean O'Malley, which was a big fight, a big statement. But it wasn't such a clean, clear-cut performance that, oh, this guy really is there just yet. The Dong Song fight probably could have been something close to that, but the judges were the judges that night, and he probably should have won a fight, but it didn't lean to the way. But either way, he's fighting other good prospects, but now he's fighting a Hall of Famer or future Hall of Famer, and definitely an all-time pound-for-pound GOAT, and also the 145-pound GOAT. But yeah, so this is a big step up for him. But how I see this fight, I think Marlon Vera still has not truly addressed what I see as a flaw in his, and that's dealing with a solid boxer with good technique and can pressure him. Like we saw against at least 2 fights. The main fight I can say look to is the John Lineker fight, where that's one fight. And it was at least 2 other fights where he fought these pressuring solid boxing fighter, heavy-handed, and gonna be in his face. I'm not saying that's his Aldo. Aldo has all those skills. He has all those skills and more, plus the boxing. And I think like his pressure, his pace, and especially this being a 3-round and not a 5-round fight, I think it's gonna favor Aldo, like because like I said, he's not gonna need to extend himself through 5 rounds, just 3 rounds. And if he does slow down, it's just gonna be a 1 round. I don't think Vera's not really a known finisher, and Aldo's tough anyway and has heart. Now to see Aldo being able to dictate those first 2 rounds at least, and I really see him being able to dictate 3 rounds, but just in case, at least 2 rounds. But I'm gonna say 3 rounds, be able to dictate the pace, pressure, put Vera on the back foot. I keep saying Vera, put Vera on the back foot, rip to his body, rip up top, and then at times be tactical, like mix it up so he don't just fight smart, get a victory, get back on the winning side, and then get back to bigger fights. So at times be aggressive, ripping the body, going up top, going mid, then rip like so. Up high combos and going to rip into the leg with classic vintage Aldo in this one, knowing that Vera's going to be on his back foot, which is going to allow Aldo to really start getting his groove going on. Then at times, slowing it down, mixing the jab, sticking behind the jab, working behind the jab, and controlling that range, controlling that distance, controlling the pace, and being the general in this one, and beating Vera to a smart decision. So in this fight, I have Jose Aldo via decision. Now on to our main event, we have in the welterweight division, we have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Jeff Neal. So this is a solid fight right here. In this fight, I've been jumping back and forth on, because when I look at Thompson versus Neal, I see Thompson versus his last opponent. I'm forgetting the guy's name right now, but it's going to come back to me. It's going to come back to me by the end of this video. But when I look at Thompson versus Neal, I look at him like him versus his last opponent. You got a solid, like a kickboxing type fighter who style doesn't really have the best defense. It's not the most motionary. So yeah, I just remember Vicente Luque. But yeah, amazing striker, but like a better version of Vicente Luque anyway. I'm not saying like he's a carbon copy. It's a better carbon copy of Vicente Luque. They got definitely differences to their style, but I see a lot of similarities to their style. Whereas I think Vicente Luque is a little bit more aggressive with the submissions, better with the front headlocks and stuff, type submissions and darts and the guillotine and stuff. More offensive, more aggressive, but his defense is a little bit lacking, whereas Neal's defense is better. His takedown defense is definitely a lot better. His wrestling is a lot better. So defense is a lot better, his wrestling a lot better, but Luque is a lot more offensive, better with the elbows, the knees, like that Muay Thai, like all the 8 deadly limbs, he's better with all that. But Jeff Neal packs more power, more accurate, better defense, better wrestling, offensive and defensively. And like I said, pack a little bit more power. And I think his fight IQ is a little bit better. So, but I think maybe the biggest part is his power and his defense and that fight IQ that makes it different. I'm not saying that Luque is not a smart fighter. He's definitely a smart technical fighter. But I just think Neal, I'm just saying in respect to how highly I think of Neal. So first I'll lead to Thompson because I feel like his style was so similar to Luque that it could play out that way. But then you look at the momentum. So I got to factor in the youth factor. He's like 7 years younger than Thompson. Got to factor in the momentum. He's really he's undefeated in the UFC, on a tear, looking better with each fight. He's been active, but Thompson's been more inactive. I think he's been out for a year, but I think Thompson's been out for like a year and a month. So they've both been inactive, but Thompson has been even more inactive. So inactivity is not on either side, and typically inactivity is going to be worse for an older fighter than a younger fighter. Typically, unless they're like a young fighter still trying, gain tools, like they're 20 something or 22, 23. And, well, even then, when they be inactive, they still be active. They're just so young, they just always training. But either way, I think that's going to be worse for an older fighter who needs to stay in the groove. Because when you get out of that groove, all of a sudden you realize, like, you lay on the couch for long enough, you're like, damn, I'm really in 40. You got to keep fighting, you just got to be so focused on fighting that you don't realize how old you are. And that's what Thompson, he's been on the couch for like a year and a month, and he's just been making YouTube videos. So he's been training, but he hasn't been fighting. I think that's going to factor more against Thompson than Neal. And the fact that Thompson's been like up and down, even though he really hasn't really lost a fight in the UFC. He lost to Willie barely, was beating Pettis and got caught. He did lose to Matt Brown way back. That was a real true loss. But Willie's fights were like real close. They could have went either way. And really, you could say they should have went his way. Could have. You could say that. It's a good argument. And then the Till fight. But these fights has really, outside of the Brown fight, hasn't really been truly decisive. I mean, Pettis knocked him out, but it was not like Pettis picked him apart and just say, oh, this guy was clearly better than him and just beat him throughout. He found he was the better man on the night, but he didn't this clearly show like a performance where he just won in every single avenue. He outstruck him and then finished him. Outstruck him, wrestled him, and then beat him up, dropped him, took him down, and submitted him. He didn't do nothing like that. He hasn't been done that dirty yet. But when I look at this fight, to get more to the point and not drag it, I'm leaning to the momentum. I'm leaning to the youth. I'm leaning to the inactivity affecting Thompson more. leaning to the power, and I'm leaning to Neal to land those leg kicks. Even though Luque landed like 52 leg kicks in that fight, and it didn't still stop Thompson from having a great performance and winning a dominant performance against Luque. But in the round he landed the most leg kicks, and he was most active with leg kicks. He won that round against Thompson. That was the first round. And also, this has been a 5-round fight. And like I said, the inactivity of Thompson, the power of Neal, the defense of Neal. Neal's going to be able to defend more of Thompson's game more, and then be able to counter with leg kicks, rip to the body with some body shots, and then we start to pressure Thompson and take away his wills and start to pressure him. This is a 5-round fight, not a 3-round fight. So Thompson has to use those legs more, and Neal will have more time to attack those legs. So I think this is a close, really close, like tense fight, especially through 3. And I think Neal starts to take it away in the championship rounds. Like I said, when he starts paying the dividends to the legs, rip to the body, take away the wills, rip the body. So he already got the legs, then he can't move as much. Hit the body, then he can't move the head as much. Then go up top and start to tag Thompson up top. I think this is, like I said, a very highly exciting, high-level striking matchup. But factoring everything in, going to lean to the youth, going to lean to the power, going to lean to the more active fighter, and lean to, like I said, lean to that momentum. And also style-wise. So going to that 4th round, after working to the leg, to the body, panels, dividends, I think he's going to be able to find Thompson up top, drop him in the 4th round, and put him away in that 4th round. So in this fight, I have Jeff Neal via 4th round TKO. And that concludes my fight predictions for the main card of UFC Fight Night, Thompson versus Neal. And as always, thanks for watching.